Greetings, beloved ones, and welcome to Satsang. I greet you in this day of honoring the tradition that's known as Guru Purnima, although the day of Guru Purnima is not exactly this day. It's the day of the full moon. And I want to tell you why I'm sharing this day with you this year when I have not done it before, and why I'm inviting you to share it with me. There are several reasons, beloveds, and they all come together. For as long as I have been at the center of this ashram, and before we moved to this residence, it's been known to me and been made apparent that certain people within our Western culture have great difficulty with spiritual teachers, and especially if those spiritual teachers have the name Guru attached to them, but not just that. So that's been an observation that I've made over many years. But recently, an event took place which was minor in its circumstance, but revealing, and this is just one of three parts that I'm sharing with you, that when we planned the Feed the Hungry concert, which took place on June 27th, we, in our efforts to create publicity for the event, outreach to many different media sources and, to try to make the concert known. And one of those sources that we outreached to, who would have been a great source of inviting people to this concert, felt that they couldn't participate in the publicity because of my name, GurujiMa, which was a surprise to me. I didn't know at that moment that somebody would really feel that strongly about the word Guru that they would not participate in a benefit concert, publicity, because of the name associated with it, my name. So that was a small event. The concert went beautifully and the publicity was fine, but it must have stirred something in me about this question of why this intensity occurs. It's about Guru, but it's also about spiritual authority, about teachers. But that was just one stream. The other was that I had the experience this past, 2 weeks ago now, of being infused by something that came to me as a direct recognition of the joy of the Guru Purnima tradition. And it's hard to tell you how these things happen. If you have access to your own inner knowing that comes from another place in you, that has nothing to do with your mind, then you'll know that sometimes great feelings of joy can occur for no reason that has anything to do with anything outside. It has something to do with your soul revealing itself to you, saying something to you about what it being your soul is joyful about. In this case, that soul perception of my own higher being was revealing to me the whole Guru Purnima tradition in terms of what human beings could rejoice in, which is God manifesting upon the earth, which is what the Guru Purnima celebration is about. The divine intention of bringing awakening to truth, to human consciousness, has been going on for thousands of years. The divine intention of bringing awakening to truth, to human consciousness, is the reason for rejoicing. That human beings have not been left to their own devices, that the Divine One, by whatever name we call the Divine One, has created the means for consciousness to evolve, to transform, and to awaken. And these means are both inner and outer. This is the source of what my rejoicing was about. It was that I could share this with you. And the inner and outer was a big part of what I wanted to share, because we don't talk about this in our English most of the time. The Guru is not a person. The Guru is an emanation, is an awakener. And the Guru, if you think a Guru is a person, then you're looking at the wrong place for what you're trying to receive. The emanation is the transmission of a divine light, truth, activation. There are many different words for it that can come through someone who has that level of awakening. The transmission is the Guru. The emanation is the Guru. But it's not just a person embodying this. Every human being has an inner Guru. Every human being, and that's the part I wanted to share today. Every human being has an inner Guru because every human being is connected with the source directly connected with the source of creation. So every human being can be awakened by their own evolving connection between their physical embodied consciousness and that source that is part of their higher consciousness. There's no preventing that except for the clouds of confusion and darkness that get in the way of that. There's nothing else preventing that. The source is already there. The inner Guru is already there. The awakener is already there from your own being. And knowing that, you have the option, anybody does, to always try to attune to that, to pray to that, to ask for that. Because, beloved ones, in principle, there is no difference between the outer and the inner Guru. They're both sources of divine awakening. The reason that there are outer manifestations of Guru is because for an individual incarnated soul, there are often layers of distortion or darkness or fear or inhibition that make it harder to access that inner Guru, that inner source. Then one might receive from a direct transmission, the direct transmission not being encumbered by any other, hopefully not being encumbered by any other energy. So, in principle, the two are the same. In practice, the human need for healing that overlays the direct perception of truth often means that one has to work through for a longer period of time what covers the inner Guru, transmission, awakener. Longer period of time. It still will happen, but it takes longer. This is the second stream of what I wanted to share with you. The first being the aversion to the word Guru and to spiritual authority. The second being the stream of awakening that lives within you as the inner Guru, which is the same as the outer stream. And the third is this. This is my own rejoicing that seemed to come at the same time as the other. The reason I could talk about this freely now is because some part of me had already moved beyond Guru. More. I was already beyond it, but I moved further beyond it. So that I am free of all labels, including the Guru label. Doesn't matter what anybody calls me, I'm not that. Any label doesn't apply. So I feel rejoicing in that also, because whatever inner level shift took place was a level shift. It wasn't from zero to something. It was the joy that comes with the freedom of not being defined by anything. The freedom to be everything, or the freedom to be, I guess you could say, what you were created to be. The joy of freedom is that for you, as well as for me, that you would feel the joy in being free to be whatever you were created to be. That's the greatest freedom. So my own experience was I could talk about gurus now with complete freedom because I wasn't that. And which is ironic, to be talking about gurus, especially with my name being GurujiMa, to be talking about gurus and saying, you can call me that, but that's not what I am. But that's what happened, is this burst of joy came about the tradition itself and what it was bringing to the earth and the beauty of God's love that had created the means for awakening inside every person. That simultaneously with the liberation that went to another stage of myself being free to have no labels at all, and any label that anybody wanted to apply was fine for that reason because I'm not that. So those were the three streams that came together. And I think for you, well, I don't know this for sure, but I think for us today, one of the valuable things could be for you to see where you are with believing that you have this inner awakener within you. And if you do trust that, then what do you do about it? Because it doesn't just sit there. There are all these clouds, or could be, that have to be parted. And there's an effort that it takes to trust it, to trust when you pray and you ask for that wisdom of the divine light to be with you, to not give up if it doesn't appear right away, to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. That's important also in terms of establishing a connection. It opens the road. So giving up is a sense of failure. Yes, I may have an inner guru, but what's the difference because I can't feel it and I can't access it? It doesn't work like that, beloved ones. Every effort you make to connect with something, whether you feel it as a result or not, opens a pathway. Every effort opens a pathway. That's why prayer is important. Prayer is important not because it brings to you exactly what you want. It's important because it opens a pathway to the divine within you and the divine beyond you. So prayer is important. And asking for this relationship to make itself known, whether you feel it or not, and to not give up is important. I think another part of what we might talk about is what I said about my own freedom, because human beings look for happiness and joy. What's that song? Cat Stevens, looking for love in all the wrong places. Yeah, right. Well, looking for joy in all the wrong places is another version of that. We look for joy in all the wrong places because they're not lasting. And most of them, there are some that are lasting. But a lot of them aren't. They're just temporary highs that then come into a new low and so on. So if you knew that the greatest joy was the joy of being yourself, you would bend every effort to be in the place of doing what was needed to be free to be yourself. Because that freedom and joy are connected. Freedom to be yourself is the greatest gift that the divine has given to human beings. Because the freedom to be yourself is not the ego self. The freedom to be yourself is the self that you were created to be, because that's much more than what you think it is, much more. So if you knew that to be the case, since every human being is looking for joy and happiness, you would be spending all your time doing those pursuits that made you feel more like yourself and in the direction of your soul, because your ego self is not yourself. Your ego self is your manager, your adapter, your controller, but it's not yourself. So you would be doing whatever you could to find that freedom that would bring you to the place where you're beyond anybody else's expectations, definitions, thoughts, opinions about you. You would do what you could, and then you'd be free to be joyful, because freedom is joy, to be that. So it sounds funny to me to say, the reason I could talk about gurus today is because I'm not that. That sounds paradoxical, but that's how it is. So what else is there to share about this? Aversion. In our Western culture and in our country, in this country in particular, there's an aversion to the idea of hierarchy, because the founding principles on which this country was founded have a great, great importance given to equality. Equality is important, but equality where and equality what? Equality is the essence of all beings. All are created by God. The equality of essence, the equality of what you are in your core self is unchangeable. Equality exists on that level for all beings, no matter what their behavior, no matter what they've done, it remains the same. It's the reason for forgiveness, because the essence of a person, which is their self, their true self, doesn't change, remains holy. Even if their outer behavior becomes harmful, their inner self remains holy. So equality is given great importance in our culture. And as a result, the idea of hierarchy has gotten confused. And there are, of course, downsides to people being in positions of greater authority. Politically, there are downsides. We know that today from what's going on in this country. People in positions of authority who have the right to legislate, create policy for other people, have created great problems throughout history. But if somebody didn't know more than you knew, if your definition of hierarchy is not about power but about learning, you would have a different attitude about hierarchy. If you take a book off the bookshelf, or you go to a lecture, or you are going to a workshop, you are putting yourself in the position of trying to learn from somebody who knows more than you, whether it's the author of a book, or the creator of a workshop, or somebody else that you want to glean some advice or wisdom, practical or whatever, from. That person knows more than you. Right there is hierarchy. Right there. And spiritual hierarchy is a hierarchy of knowledge. It's a hierarchy of being based on knowledge, and the knowledge is experiential. It's not book knowledge, it's experience. So, because in our Western culture, hierarchy has gotten identified with the abuses of power, it has gotten translated to the fear of, aversion to, and rejection of spiritual hierarchy. Now, it's also true that there are those within any hierarchy who can abuse their position of being the one who allegedly knows more. Absolutely, it's possible and has been the case. But the principle of hierarchy is not to be rejected. If it were, one would never grow up. You would never learn anything from anybody, because you wouldn't want to say somebody knows more than me. You wouldn't be able to be in that position. Spiritual hierarchy is about that. It's about the capacity to transmit experientially something that somebody knows from their own embodied experience that can be of benefit to others. It's like that. It doesn't mean that that knowledge hasn't been abused. And abused is not really deliberate abuse. In most cases, a person in a position of spiritual authority becomes unconscious of the departure from identification with what they're trying to share. A separation takes place. Most often it's not deliberate. Sometimes it is deliberate, but most often it's not. But you, all of you, everyone, has an inner monitor, which is the inner guru, to not have to say whatever comes through this being is what I have to accept. Nobody has to do that. You don't have to abandon yourself, but that doesn't mean you can't learn. The spiritual hierarchy of knowledge is based on the transmission from one embodied being to another of what is possible to know as an experience. And it's nothing else but that. And those who are afraid of that hierarchy of knowledge can choose to not do that, to not learn from whatever or whoever they might, and to trust only the inner guru, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a question of where knowledge comes from experientially and what it takes to get to it. So you can ask yourself where you are with this. I think of all the things I'm saying, the two that I want to leave you with are this: that there is no separation between the divine source of revelation and awakening that lives within you as an embodied being, and the divine source of revelation and awakening that becomes embodied within a teacher or guru. There's no difference. The guru is not the person, they're the emanation, the transmission. However, one has to do the work with the inner guru of uncovering that which covers it, because if you don't do that, then you think your own mind is the guru, and it's not. Your own deeper wisdom is the guru, not your own mind, not your own thoughts, not your own feelings. That's not the guru. So that's part one of what I'd like to leave you with. And the other is that when you think of being happy or being joyful, consider what I said about freedom. The freedom to be yourself as you were created, as you were divinely created, is the source of joy, is the greatest source of joy. It's the most lasting, it's the deepest, it's the most expanded. And if you know that, then you might do whatever life brings to you as a possibility to learn who you are, to learn more about how to be free to be yourself. I want to also leave you with this rejoicing. I rejoice, I invite you to rejoice in this huge gift, this huge benevolence, this huge love that has created within human consciousness the possibility for awakening, following or in the midst of the sphere of duality, in the midst of the belief that we are just our bodies and that the physical world is just what it is. There is this light, this path that has been given for people to move out of that layer into the expanded layer of what reality really is, if you want it, if you want it. And that rejoicing is at this great love that has been given to human beings to awaken. We can all bow before that love and that gift of awakening, because it is the greatest gift to consciousness within the embodied self, that the possibility of movement towards freedom and truth is there for each embodied soul, for each embodied soul. May you be blessed, beloved ones, with that path opening before you. May you be blessed, may you open to it, may you trust it, may you do whatever your life calls you to, so that you can be free to be yourself. Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Namaha. I bow to the Supreme Being that lives within all. Namaskar.